What's up, y'all, and welcome into the Jack Vita Show. I'm Jack Vita, back for the latest exit interview for Deal or No Deal Island. We're working our way from fourth place now to third place, and we'll have interviews with the final two later in the week. But today, we've got something that I'm very excited about. This is an exit interview, long-form exit interview with the Dr. Midwife, Stephanie Mitchell. We spoke with her a month ago, and now she can have total free reign and say whatever she wants to say. Well, I guess to a degree, but she doesn't have to worry about spoiling anything. So it is Stephanie Mitchell. Welcome back, my friend.
Thank you so much, Jack. You know, it's always a pleasure. I've been following this story, this program as a viewer, as you know, as well as somebody who played in the game. And one of my favorite things post episode is to hear your recaps and how the audience views it. It's been really great fun. So thank you so much for having me back.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate those kind words. And I think you even started digging in and listening to some of our traders coverage too.
Oh my goodness. And I was like, I have been missing out on a world of fun. I had to go back and I'm like, no, I'm going to get into this. And I just absolutely adore your commentary and your thoughtful discussion and breaking down the different scenarios in traders. And you guys did that for Deal or No Deal Island. It's definitely a skill you have. And I have just enjoyed myself. So I cannot wait for the next season of these programs that I enjoy so much, because I'm going to be right on it.
Oh, thank you so much. And we'll have you on to discuss it and break it down now that you get to be on the other side and be a little bit of the media. All right. So third place.
Yes.
How's it feel?
It feels, well, of course, there's nothing that would beat a win. However, all things considered, all of the events that made this a very tumultuous, difficult, mentally challenging, physically challenging season, to come up third, I am incredibly proud of myself. I did what 10 other contestants were unable to do, and it is nothing that I am not proud of. I'm super proud of how I played this game, and the outcome is what it is. And, it's one of those things. It's like luck of the draw. Nobody was able to point at me and say, Stephanie, you go home. I'm like, how did that happen? So it was great. It was great. I had such a wonderful experience, and I'm pleased. Like I said, I could only be more pleased if I won. But other than that, I'm okay.
Okay, so glad to see you're a good sport about everything.
Yeah.
But I do have to ask, I mean, do you think this is how you settle these things when you get down to three people? As the competitor in me, I'm like, come on, let's have them fight it out. No, leave nothing to chance.
Totally. I feel like, but that has been such a huge part of this game of Deal or No Deal Island, is that you get to the excursions and then you battle it out in the temple. And so with this particular time, we didn't have the opportunity at this excursion to battle it out at the temple. It was either, all in or all out. And so I ran my little heart out in that maze for the final excursion. Running an exercise is not my thing. Like, I'm not into it. I don't like, it's not my strong point. And I knew going in that the physicality portions of this program would be something I might challenge myself with. So giving it all in the maze and having it come down to chance, I was like, no, I wanted to come in and I wanted to be third for more than just 60 seconds. But I did relish in it. Believe me, I'm third and super like, I did it. Okay. But it was just like a little fluke situation where you've got to roll the dice, and sometimes you get the number and sometimes you don't. And that was the case with the final three cases, and me having the lowest value, and Amy having the highest value, and Jordan having the next highest value. It's just the way it shaked out.
That was a really cool final challenge.
Yes.
What'd you think of, I mean, it was really fun to watch. It was one of the better challenges we saw all season, or excursions, I should say. And then another thought that I had, and again, I'm curious to hear your take on this, was I felt like the end game got kind of rushed. Like, I want to see, I'm so used to Survivor and the end game really being a little more drawn out. You want to see, okay, now we go from 4 to 3. Maybe you get the final 2 reflecting a little bit on their experience. And within a matter of minutes, we went from 4 to 1. It just felt like it happened a little quickly. What'd you think about that as a viewer? And I should add that Stephanie is a longtime OG reality TV fan.
Oh, just a little piece of information that a lot of folks don't know. And that also summarized a little bit how I felt about it. I wanted to definitely duke it out. And I would be remiss not to mention that one of the highlights of this entire program was having a Boston Rob as a competitor on the show. And so it stood to reason that we were left on a little bit of a precipice on whether or not Rob would be coming out of that maze before Amy or not. And I think in probably some of the editing, that decision was made potentially to be able to carry over those viewers who vowed to watch Rob take this whole game. And so probably that has a little piece to do with editing. So as a result, we couldn't tie everything up. Come the next episode, they've got to quickly get rid of the third, and which was me, and move on to the next thing. So what you saw was probably a lot more of an episode with a lot less time. And so I think viewers are definitely picking up on that.
Okay. So is there anything you would have changed about that?
Well, I think showing who came out of the maze and eliminating them should have been the end of that program. And then the next episode, I would have loved to have seen another challenge, another excursion that was able to, again, stratify us in first, second, and third. That would have been nice. But to just completely go from 4 to 2 was a little, and unceremoniously, myself being the third, it was just like, okay, you're done. So I didn't get to battle it out in a real way. I battled it out in that maze, and that's where my battle ended. So, yeah, I would have loved to see something else, but I don't get to curate the program, and I certainly understand where it might have come from, the decision to do it like that.
Yeah, I would say I was surprised, to say the least, because I felt like up to that point, you and Rob, they were building you guys up as rivals. And so the fitting ending would be to see you guys slugging it out. So to see you guys just both go out at the exact same time, hey, maybe that's kind of fitting in a way, but it was a little odd because I felt like we just didn't really get to spend, like, all of a sudden you're just out of the show and then it's just, we're not talking about you anymore. It was weird.
Yeah, it was totally unceremonious, like very, there was nothing to write home about. It wasn't an event. I didn't lose an excursion. I didn't come last in an excursion. It just was, bad luck in that moment. So I see that. And it was like, I remember this moment, and Rob was providing me some of his insight as a competitive reality expert, in which he enlightened me that I should not focus my attention on those who I saw as the biggest threat, but rather I should take my attention and focus it towards those who were seemingly float through the game. And I thought that was very apt and great advice for him. It was one, unfortunately, I was not able to do at that time because I was backed into a corner. And at that point in time, it was going to be me or Alyssa. It was Alyssa. She had to go. But I found it very interesting that same advice, he in turn at the temple turned around and made a statement about making sure it would be his duty to make sure that I didn't win. And therein lies the critical error, because focus on the people who are, maybe floating through the game. Take some of your own advice. And that's exactly kind of what happened. He was a downfall of his own gameplay advice, his own masterclass, so to speak. And so I thought that was very, sadly fitting that both of us, although many will be remiss to put any credit on my name as a competitive reality gamer, but to both of our detriment, neither of us were able to move forward. And that would have been an epic battle, to say the least.
Well, and there's a lot of wisdom in that, but don't you also, if you do have someone who you perceive is aggressively targeting you, don't you have to take care of them first before the non-obvious ones?
Absolutely. And it was, it was to actually Alyssa's detriment that she became so vociferously opposed to me when I didn't go along with her plan to put Kim in a position to have to play against the banker. And I didn't want to go along with that idea. And from that moment on, I was perceived as a liar, as two-faced. So I was unable to save face with Alyssa. And she went so far as to create other scenarios and situations, which unfortunately diverted my attention to my core mission. Like Alyssa wasn't on the mission. But when I saw her essentially sacrifice her game in the interest of saving Rob, I knew I had a problem on my hands. Same goes for Claudia. When I saw her sacrifice her game for the sake of Rob, I was very worried, because it became apparent to me that we had a bunch of people who would be eligible to be controlled in the game. And I couldn't have that. It's super distracting when you're trying to focus on actual real targets. But when she became vociferous and vocal and loud about these things, I didn't have a choice but to target her. And I did what any good gamer should do, which is keep your opposition and who you would like out in your pocket. You don't need to say anything. You don't need to create a scene. You don't want to let them know. And Rob did the exact same thing. He didn't create a scene. He didn't let people know. He was going after me, and he did it quietly. And that's the right thing. It just didn't work out for either of us.
We mentioned the conversations that you and Rob would have. Did you try at any point to put your brains together and work together? Because I think you guys could have been a pretty evil dynamic duo.
I wanted it to work out like that. But as we saw in Heroes versus Villains, Coach had the type of personality that worked well with Rob. Philip in Redemption Island, he had the certain personality that worked well with Rob. I do not have that type of personality. You need to be malleable. You need to be submissive. You need to be open to suggestions that may not benefit your own game. And that's not something I was willing to do. So it's such a bummer. We could have been a great evil duo, whatever. But I don't have the type of personality that allows for that malleability. And we were unable to establish trust very, very, very early in the game. Season 1, episode 1, Rob asked me what value I had in my case in the mud. I immediately lied to him, seeing that question as being threatening, and I was unable to establish trust and rapport with him. Critical error, because moving forward, it's a short period of time, it's high stakes, it's fast paced. If you don't create that space of trust immediately, it's very easy for it to fracture. We have no relationship or foundation beyond just meeting each other. So that trust, it either happens immediately or it does not. And unfortunately, I lied to him immediately in the beginning. He caught on to that like the expert gamer that he is. And I wasn't able to move forward with him. So that put me in a position of having to go against someone who is one of the greatest players probably of our modern day. So that was tough. It was hard.
All right. Well, going back to the maze, we need your take on the breach of the rules.
Oh my. Okay. Well, so basically, we as the players, the contestants, due to like the standards that are put in place by the network to make sure that there's fairness and rules are followed, we are provided an opportunity to hear the rules of the particular excursions. And we're offered an opportunity to ask clarifying questions and even to ask about strategy things, if that's what you want to do, whether or not you're allowed to do something or not, you can ask these questions. And so for someone who kept saying, this is not Survivor, they unfortunately reverted to what they know best, which are the rules of Survivor, which dictate that you can cheat in these type of ways. And unfortunately, the rules of the game were pretty clear. And in this particular instance, we were not allowed to look at our opponent's answer. And so I didn't know what was going on when we were told that there has been a breach of the rules. I suspected what it might be, but I was very shocked and surprised.
Okay. So now we're going to walk through this because I got a few questions about this.
Sure.
What's your take on Rob? Was he fully aware of this? Do you think he had some kind of a lapse in judgment for a moment and reverted to some kind of survivor state? Do you think it was blatantly intentional? What was your take on all that?
My take is that Rob is an incredibly gifted gamer who's constantly looking for an edge in the game. He did that on previous excursion. He's always 2 to 3 steps ahead. And so when Rob did this, my guess is he was looking for an edge. Completely reasonable, but unfortunately the rules were clear in that piece. So I think in his misstep for looking for that edge, he inadvertently wasn't really paying attention to what we were being told. And I don't fault him. He's in many other excursions. I had the benefit of listening to Rob and hear him ask questions of things that I wasn't even thinking of, but essentially showed me that I had every right to be weary of this man who's super intelligent and has a competitive spirit. So I think that's what happened there. It just is unfortunate for him, the way that it worked out.
Now, he said something very interesting on our presser yesterday, which was he wishes that he had just shouted the answer out to you and Jordan. So that way, that would stop the time penalty. You guys move forward. He said he asked production, "Can I do this?" And they said, "No, you cannot." And he said, in hindsight, I should have just done it without any kind of clarification.
So he's saying that he should have looked at Amy's and yelled it out loud.
Well, once he got busted and it says, okay, you've got a time penalty, and it was the time between whatever Amy is and the next person, and he's thinking I should just shout the answer out so that way you guys get the answer. Yes.
Man, again, like sometimes you just can't go around the rules. Sometimes there's just rules in place. And I fear that would have been grounds for elimination. Like, he was very fortunate to only get a game penalty. And this was a little bit of my beef along the whole way. Like, sometimes you just have to play the game. Sometimes the chips just have to fall where they may. And I learned that very early on, where Alyssa tried to create this big plan. Oh, you do this, then you don't miss, and then you do that, and we'll put Kim at the bottom. Can I just shoot? Can I just shoot and try my best and get a steal or get a $2 million? Can I play? And so sometimes, instead of trying to manipulate the system so much, sometimes you just have to play. And I fear that would have resulted in a harsher penalty, because now you can't even impose the original penalty because you've now negated their ability to buffer out your game, your game error. So that probably wouldn't have been wise on his part. Sometimes it's better to just play the game.
I think he's probably thinking, well, I lost anyway, so why not? In hindsight, knowing that I was going to lose, why not?
Yeah, I don't like that.
Shot.
Nah, I don't like that. I don't like that. I mean, you could do what he wants. I have a lot of hindsight moments, but none of it includes doing things. We'll get to it, I'm sure, but doing things that we saw Amy did in the final excursion, like shaking the rope, that stuff blows my mind. Like I maybe I'm not as competitive as I need to be in that respect. I don't even think about stuff like that. I was sort of just like, we'll play the game. And what happens kind of happens. Not like I'm going to spoil your efforts and you being able to do what you can. No, we'll just play the game. We'll just play. We'll do our best. And whatever happens, happens. So, maybe I don't have that sort of like crafty mentality and thinking, because I'm not looking necessarily for the edge on how to beat the system. I want to play within the rules and the confines of the system and win it fair and square.
Yeah. I gotcha. And I will say that I was glad that that was enforced, because that's something that's always bothered me on Survivor is like, no. You shouldn't just be able to like look at someone's puzzle. You have to solve that puzzle. That's how it should be. I'm curious also, how long did that, you guys stopped and all of a sudden on the show, now you're holding an umbrella because it's clearly hot and you're shading yourself. How long did this like thing take where you just had to pause?
I have a difficult time maybe figuring out how long it may have been. I'm going to say it was probably maybe like, if I had to guess, I'd say like 9 or 10 minutes, maybe something like that. And maybe not even that much, because time was like a vortex back then. But you know, it's a whole production. So you have to reset. You've got to put people in places. You know, you've got the contestants who are trying to be shaded. You've got Amy, who's already in the maze somewhere, re-camera set. So it was quite a disturbance for a few minutes there.
I was thinking that the pause I'm curious what you think of this. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if you disagree, agree.
Okay.
I was thinking that the pause hurt Amy a little bit, because she's flying out there, she's in the maze, and now all of a sudden she's just got to stop. And I could see it being easy to kind of get lost and forget kind of where you're going in the middle of a maze when you just have to stand there for 10 minutes, whereas you and Jordan can still kind of look at the puzzle and think about the puzzle a little bit, right? Like you guys are able to kind of work on that in your head a little bit.
So a little bit of insider information, and this just kind of speaks to a little bit of the production things that need to happen to film this sort of thing, which I didn't know about. But when Amy ran out there, the way that it was set up is that she ran out there and had to stop, and her time was kept. Then the second person had to run out there and stop. Her time was kept, which was mine. And then Jordan got it. She got to run out and pause. So when you see the actual very first runoff, that is a couple of takes, but the timing is 100% correct. So Amy wasn't on her way all in the map into the maze. She was just at the beginning, and we were keeping time because you had the times that we started and the times that each person could enter, those were already set based on how we did on the puzzle. So I understand where that would seem to be a disadvantage to Amy, but from the insider perspective, it ended up not being an issue. We were all just stopped in real time. And I'm not good with numbers anyway. I could have had all the time in the world. I wasn't coming up with that by calculations.
Okay, so you're saying that you ran into the maze after you finished the puzzle, and then you had to stop for a certain amount of time because Amy had to stop for a certain amount of time in the middle of the maze?
No, this was just the way that the filming was going to go anyway. Amy had to run out as soon as she got her puzzle. And as soon as she went through like that threshold, the timing was paused, or they kept time. And then I went, and then they kept time. And then Jordan went, and they kept time. So that way, when we're really starting out, we're all starting out at the podium. We're not really doing our puzzles, and then we can go. And then I just have to sit there and wait until the allotted amount of time that it took from Amy to start until when I finished my puzzle, and then I could run. And Jordan had to do the same, and Rob had to do the same in addition to his penalty. So does that make sense?
Yeah, that's interesting. So how long were you guys in the maze? How long do you think that took?
Oh my word. It felt like forever for me, but I would have to say it had to be like 25 minutes. It had to have been. I mean, it had to have been. What I do know is that cumulatively, from the time that Amy started to the time that Rob had his delay and he was able to go, it was about 12 minutes. It was like a 12-minute delay for him from the time Amy went to the time that he went. I'm pretty sure that was the penalty.
And Rob said that he really was not that close behind Amy. Like I think he said he heard Amy crossing the finish line when he was still getting the case.
Wow. Okay. Because what we saw, yes, that makes sense. Wow. Okay. Because from what we saw, Amy was headed back with her case, and she had a much more difficult time going over those hurdles. And Rob was headed down to go pick up his case. And that was just a straightaway. Once you go through 10 of those hurdles, you're there at the cases. And so That's I thought he was way closer behind, but we did see Amy get lost again on the way going back in to the finish line.
So that was the main thing, that Amy just was struggling with the directions on there.
Yeah,
and you were too.
Totally. Oh my goodness. I briefly looked at this map, which was rudimentary at best. And I am a person, like, when I ask for directions, don't be like, oh, go 4 blocks north. You lost me. Don't know what that is. So I'm not great directionally. But when I took a quick glance at the map, I noticed that there wasn't a whole lot of turns you needed to be taking. So if you feel like you're taking a whole lot of turns, it was like you essentially follow the road on down and don't try to go off on any of the sides. That's what I took from it. And I can't take anything else. So as I made my way after I came out from the hurdles, I was like, all right, I'm going to just do that. And fortunately, Jordan, who's probably great at maps, I don't know, sounds like she is. I was like, perfect. She's going where I'm going. So we'll go together. We'll head off together. And she, you know, she was right on it. She knew where she was going. Jordan must read maps.
So I've got to ask the question, because I know the listeners are the first ones that are commenting on this and pointing it out. Not all my listeners, but people on the Facebook groups, everything like that.
Oh,
How is that not cheating? You following Jordan around? How is that different from what Rob did?
I mean, it's incredibly different. Number one, that was not in the stated rules, meaning if you see someone in front of you, please don't go where they go. Like, that almost makes sense. Like, it's not like Jordan wasn't going to where I was going. We have the same destination. It would actually be foolish to say, I'm going to go another way. No, I trust Jordan. I know we're going to the same place. So I'm definitely going to follow her. I was hot on her tail and it just made sense. She was going the general direction that I was going. It's not like she was headed to New Mexico and I was going somewhere else. We're both headed to the same place. So of course. And the biggest difference between cheating and not cheating is that we have rules to follow. And that wasn't one of the rules. So, yeah. I mean, I just am playing the game. Yeah.
Right.
It's
I could see. I don't know how, like, you don't kind of take notice of, oh, this person's going this way and we're both trying to do this thing. Like, that just doesn't make sense. Of, like, are you supposed to then say, well, I'm going to go in the opposite direction because that would be unethical of me to look at where they're going. Like, no, I think there's no way that could even be a rule. That's like, you can't follow someone in a maze. So I'm with you on that one.
There is probably some level of cognitive dissonance where people are definitely like looking to find fault where there is none to be found. And just briefly, which I thought it was a great move, wasn't shown, but people did ask. When I went into the maze, I took off my shoelaces and people were like, what were you doing with your shoelaces off? And knowing that I'm not great at maps, I took my shoelaces off and I tied them at 2 different points in that maze so that I would know where to turn. And so that was a little piece of my strategy. Also not in the rule book as not being able to do, but a piece of strategy that helped get me through beyond following Jordan. So just wanted to mention that.
How about that? Okay. I want to touch on some other stuff from the season because I know that you've had a lot that's been on your mind. There's a lot that wasn't shown.
Sure.
So let's just start with this. What's something that did not make the air or something that was shown that you were kind of like, ooh, I'd like to clear the air on that?
Well, so one of the things is one of the things that wasn't exactly shown, which I thought was great. I thought it was great strategy, is when we had an excursion. It was the excursion, again, where we had to follow the map. And either Nick or I were going to play against the banker. I spent a lot of time making sure that Rob thought that I was going to be playing against the banker. And so when we got to the temple and he found out this huge, gigantic lie, not only did I lie, but in that lie, deprived him of the opportunity to go and schmooze with Nick. Because, you know, when someone's going against play the banker, you want to be like, hey, was what Rob would do. Hey, let's go talk. So him thinking, okay, Nick's not playing, Stephanie's playing, I better go schmooze her up. spent all afternoon schmoozing me up, and I was like, ha ha ha, I'm not even playing. So by the time we got to the temple and he realized that he had been bamboozled by a gameplay out of his own book, I have to tell you, Rob was livid. He lost his composure. And that is probably like a piece of the anger that you did see, is that I had done too much. I'd gone too far. I told all of the lies, and he caught some of them, but he didn't catch all of them. And so by the time you see Rob very upset, I had done all that I could do to try and destroy the tactics for him that typically work in his favor. And so that is one of the things.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in here for a second, because
sure.
I remember, I want to give credit where credit's due. You and Kim talked about this on a Twitter Spaces a few weeks ago, and yes, I'm still gonna call it Twitter. It'll always be Twitter to me. Totally. So on Survivor, for those who have not watched this show as obsessively as me, Stephanie, and Kim, Rob became, one of his tactics is the buddy system, which he introduced on Redemption Island. He tried to implement it on Winners at War. Didn't really go too well. The idea was, it was really brilliant. Was like, okay, I've got this alliance of 6. We've got the numbers at the merge. So everybody grab a buddy and don't go off and talk to the other tribe. Let's all like have an accountability here where nobody's able to cross the line. And poor Matt Elrod comes back from Redemption Island, talks about how he's got an opportunity to go to the other side, but he won't. And Rob does the Rob father move where he whacks the guy, and then it's like in a mob movie, and it's like, okay, don't rat out the Goodfellas, don't rat out your friends, So that was one of the rules of Goodfellas. So he implemented that, instilled fear in his tribe, and no one crossed over the other side. So you guys described it as he did the same thing on Deal or No Deal Island, where if he knew that somebody was facing the banker, he was going to be trying to schmooze them all afternoon, right?
Yes.
All afternoon.
Totally.
So you guys created this lie where it was, you made it known Stephanie's playing the banker. So the whole afternoon he was on you and not on Nick.
Terrible.
And you're saying that part of the reason why Rob was so emotional at that temple was not because of the there was some misinformation was being spread there.
Totally. Right.
But you're saying that he's upset because he got played by the rookies. That's what you're saying.
He was livid when Joe goes, who is going to be playing? And because Amy and Jordan got to decide. It was Amy and Jordan. Yeah. And they turned and said, Joe, we're going to let Nick play. I mean, the color just about drained from Rob's face. I mean, he was so mad. And so I wasn't expecting Nick to go up there and divulge, the groundwork of deception that I had laid out. I wasn't expecting that. So I got called out. I was shook to the core because it was a bold-faced lie. I mean, Rob and Nick had gotten along really well. There was no beef between them, but I needed to make sure that Rob wouldn't be able to rekindle that friendship and alliance. And that's something he could easily do. Now, Nick assures us that would have never happened, but I had to take some insurance on the situation, and that's what I did. I had the opportunity. But when Rob called me out, that anger was bubbling. He's like, who told you that? Her? I'm like, oh, I haven't been called her in ages. She's the biggest manipulator in here. And I was like, yeah, yes, I am. And I take that as an absolute, those are very kind gamer words. Game recognized game. And so that's what it is. But beyond that, and, having to use my shoelaces as a tool in the maze, I like to highlight, some of the game things that you have to think about when Kim made her move and she made Dawson essentially give up that he had the highest value case so she can steal it. That's the type of stuff I like to see. I like to see the chess and checkers and how do you move around. That's what I like to watch as from a game perspective. All of the other drama is good and fun and all of those things. And in order to build, the protagonist story of villain versus Rob and all of these evil, bully, whatever way, I understand that the situation in the temple with Alyssa was not really highlighted. Like, where did that come from? Where did that come from? And I've spoken about it on a previous episode with you. And so I'm very grateful for the time to be able to recount that. But to me, it doesn't matter if people see that or not. I hate that there's a misinterpretation beyond anything that was seen, other than my disdain for Alyssa as a player in the game. I was not going to be able to move forward with her in that game. And again, it's because we had foundation built on mistrust, and it kind of just ends there. And it's not like a personal thing. I have never made any cruel comments about anyone's physicalities in the game, anyone's age in the game, anyone's skin tone or lack of sun in the game. That's cruel. And I don't like, by my big age, that's not anything I don't, it's good in drama if people want to get involved in name calling. I'd rather strategize. I'd rather, do that sort of thing. Although I did call Rob a pestilent boil on my rear side in the game, because that's what he had been to me. But in fun ways. I'm not getting into all name.
It was a creative usage of words. I hadn't heard that one, but it's just saying he's a pain in the rear, and he said some things too, and people didn't really seem to like. The thing is Rob has been like a guy who's created diss tracks since Survivor Marquesas. Like, yes. And absolutely. People, it's really funny because a lot of the comments were like, oh, Rob would never say anything mean about anybody. And it's like, that's the Boston Rob character. Yeah. That's what he does. And it's funny. Like, we enjoy it as viewers.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I think it all depends. We have to understand that he's got a 20-year track record and a very solid fan base. And, they're going to root for their favorite player. And there's nothing wrong with that. People as well should probably take a note from being the better citizens that they say they are, and not be cruel online and take things into their. They should probably take a note from that, while also cheering for their favorite protagonist. But whatever way people want to do it is fine.
Steph, you just touched on something that I think would be really fun to get into is, being a gamer at heart. So when did your love for reality TV spark?
Oh my goodness. Big Brother season 2. And yes. And even season 1. I mean, we've got characters on here whose personality. Now, season 1 was very different than even season 2. But when I realized that not only could you, because season 1, we didn't know what to expect. I'm talking to all the 1900 friends out here who was watching this back in the day. And by season 2, Dr. Will Kirby instilled something in me that I realized was a possibility in these games. And that is that you don't have to be the strongest. You don't have to be even the smartest sometimes, depending on the situation. You have to have the ability to navigate through these games in a social way that allows you to move people around like chess pieces in a way. I mean, you don't want to be that in real life, but it opened up the world to me of competitive reality, wherein social strategy then became a strategy of a game. And I began to read a little bit more about these types of things. And then
Boston Rob rule book.
Well, I've perused. But there were a lot of other things that I read along the years, particularly when I was very, very close to being casted Big Brother season 24, which I still haven't been able to barely get myself together to watch, because I was like, nah, I would have been there, but foiled.
That would have been 2 years ago, 2 or 3
24.
years ago.
Yeah, that was right at 21 is when it filmed.
Okay,
21.
3 years ago. So the first one after All Stars.
Yeah, I believe so. Um, yeah, Taylor Hale won that season. So I always do get a little bit muddled. But I believe that in games where like anybody can win, I like that. I like everyone having a fair shot because that is the testament to like all of like that's inherent to playing games. When you play games, there should be a way for you to win, even if you aren't the biggest or the smartest or the bravest or whatever. I believe in social capital more than anything, and I've just found ways to study it and look at it. So that is really where it started, and there are so many greats who have been able to play Big Brother and Survivor.
Any gamer inspirations, like people that you watch and like, oh my gosh, like they're some of my all-time favorites, and or I would have loved to be, or I see some similarities between me and them, and I want to take this one thing and try to do that.
I don't know if I see anybody that I have similarities with necessarily. I see people who play that have characteristics that I would love to embody. I do love the stick-to-itiveness and determination of Suri Fields. Like, I don't know how someone gathers themselves back up and continues to push forward in a game that they play so well at, but have been have had the misfortune of not being able to bring their game to a solid closure with a win. But there are people that just inspire me in different ways, even those who haven't won. There's always inspiration to be had, and stylistic elements that you want to embody and that I find. But I still, even when I try to be the best I can be, I still end up just being me. I'm like, what would, I always thought is I would come in and I would be a floater for a couple of weeks, but I'd be building my bonds with people, but I definitely want to secure that position as a floater. Then I will swing in and I will grab, strategy the way that Dan Giesling did, not being non-committal, but still involved in all of the situations. I thought that's how I would be. And I was wrong. I was very much thrust into having to play defensive mode. So it's hard to say what you think you'd be like or who you think you'd be like, but I know that I enjoy the realm. And, there's so many people to look up to in this realm of competitive reality.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's do an activity here. Deal or No Deal Island time machine. Let's go back to when you get the briefcase, the steal. Okay.
Okay.
Would you have taken now, like if you could go back in time, would you have played that differently and taken the highest value case?
Well, knowing what I know now, no, because I made it as far as I could go using the path that I could use. And so at that time, it might be like, oh, I wish I could have, but no, there's no better way that I could have played the game. What took me out was bad luck, not bad play. So I don't regret a thing. In that moment, I wanted to be stronger. I wanted to make a defense and go all the way against what people were saying, and I wasn't able to. So I didn't like that feeling within myself of feeling like a little bit bullied into a situation. I didn't like how that made me feel on the inside, like that the majority of the crowd was forcing this decision upon me. I didn't like how that felt. So immediately after, I said to myself, like, dang, Stephanie, like, you need to stand up for yourself and like, you need to do what's best for you. But retrospectively, it worked out just fine because I went as far as I could go.
Yeah, I mean, that particular moment wasn't necessarily bad because Claudia ends up going out, and she told me she was going to take you out if she had won that. So it worked out okay on the coin flip scheme of things. Okay, let's talk about the next episode then, where Rob plays the banker, and Amy makes the decision to put him up. And I think it was Dawson. I want to say it was Dawson who said, hey, why don't you put me up? I'll play. Yes.
I think that was an error on her behalf. I do think that was her a little schmoozing up to Rob. I do think that. But also on the flip side, she knows that who cares? Who cares? I'll risk him because he's not going to get me out if he wins in and makes a good deal against the banker. And if he loses, no skin off my back because he's gone anyway. Whereas if she did put Dawson into play, Dawson would have eliminated someone. It still blows my mind that that someone would have been Aaron.
He would have picked Aaron instead of Rob.
Like,
huh. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's very strange.
Well, that's like, I mean, did you feel frustrated some ways with who you're playing the game with in some capacities? Because, to my knowledge, I know that you are a gamer. Kim is a gamer. I believe I had heard that Branson was a fan of The Amazing Race.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think Branson really watched Survivor, Big Brother. I could be wrong. I had heard that Aaron watched Big Brother. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like a lot of the people in the rest of Nick likes the challenge. So there's some people who like reality TV, but not to the degree of like you and I being obsessed with this stuff and thinking about this for 25 years. Sure. So was it a little frustrating because it was probably easier for Rob to get his hooks in those people because they had not watched him or known about him?
I can't say it was frustrating for my game personally, because given the opportunity to be able to get my hooks into the people the way that I wanted to, was foiled by someone who had a higher skill level than I did.
Yeah.
So I am confident that I would have been able to move about the game differently. Still, still being strategic, but I was impeded by this very, very large focus, which took a lot of my attention. So I wouldn't say it's unfair. What would be unfair is to put Rob in a game with people that know exactly what he's about, because he wouldn't have stood a chance. So, if it was just a whole bunch of me and Kim's there, we would have been like, no, not at all. Yeah. So that would have been unfair. So I think he had level playing ground. He had to work it out, and he did. He worked it out all the way to Final Four. So
he had a huge target on his back, and he played the heck out of the game. It was a really remarkable game, and I asked him the question yesterday, and he didn't really give me a direct answer to it, but he did talk about how gutting it was. Because my thought was like, I have not seen Rob on any of these shows look that emotional after he had lost. Like, this looked like the most heart-crushing loss, and it was on himself. It wasn't anything of, okay, these people see me as a threat. They got rid of me. They're smart. That's what he always does. He's like, oh, good gameplay, guys. But this one, he's just like, man, I screwed up, and I blew it.
Yeah, I mean, that has got to be tough. That has got to be a bitter pill to swallow, because in this game, you just want to be able to play your best against all odds, and you don't want the biggest odd to be yourself. And I would be just as emotional. That was I would say even that he probably felt how I felt in terms of being targeted. There wasn't a single person's name who was more at risk than Rob and me. And so to be able to fight against all odds and end up there and have your opportunity and have it stripped away by your own self, no, I don't know if I'd be able to come back from that. He's way stronger than me. I would have been shambles to this day.
Now, while we're playing this game of what if, let's say that Rob loses to the banker in episode 4 and he's done. What's your path moving forward? What's the gameplay? I mean, because obviously that would be very advantageous to you and Kim. You and Kim, I believe, are very tight from the very beginning. Yes. So I don't know what your alliance looked like, what your plan is moving forward. What's your gameplay looking like in this situation?
Very sadly, I still am going to have to eliminate the person who wants to make a voodoo doll out of me and stab me. That's going to have to happen. That has to happen. So that would be taking my focus. And so I would essentially have to do whatever it is that I had to do, including letting people in on the different schemes and scams and lies and treachery to also fragment that trust that potentially Alyssa could have been building with other people who would be my potential allies. So that's how I would move. And once that target is gone, you know, we could play now. Now we can play. And so I don't know what that would look like, but you know.
Well, who would you, let's say I give you a chance. Let's say you could dictate the final five. Who would you want to be in the final five with? Who are your four closest allies or people you would like to play the game with the most, with Rob being out?
Oh, with all of the available characters there. So
at this point, the only people that are out are Branson, Jamil, and Rob, and Claudia.
And Kim is...
No, Kim's in because Rob is out now.
Rob you're saying if Rob... Okay. Yeah, so definitely it would be most advantageous, but it would be really difficult because I'm about to tell you. But I would want myself, Kim, Aaron, and probably Amy. And you can see why. Like, you can see why. Because I would do what anybody would, be wanting to do, is to kind of ensure yourself the biggest advantage in the end. I mean, I've got height advantage. Maybe I could use that. I've got a little bit of gamer advantage. Maybe I can use that. Amy's definitely cutthroat. She wouldn't be able to be trusted all the way, of course. So that would be difficult learning how to navigate that system. But you have to do what you can, and removing large physical threats. I mean, I think that's just the smartest thing.
So the hit list is Alyssa. And then we're talking, because that was your number one target. But
right.
And then past that, you're thinking, okay, Dawson, Nick, Miranda, Jordan, they all got to go.
I mean, these people can beat me in a sack race. Yeah. I don't have, like, I don't.
And they were all really good. They were all really good competitors.
So good.
Which is why you would have wanted them out. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing else. So maybe then I would have let other people see that, oh, wait, you need to be worried about those muscles. And I would have probably tried to float on through and let the minions take out themselves. That's would have been my strategy. Like, let's see which way, let's see what we can do to make sure that these people are in a fence. I mean, you have to test things out just a little bit to see how people are going to react. I did try that with Claudia Jordan because I didn't know how she was going to play. Gave her a little bit of information. She went right back to the source, regurgitated the information. I was like, you're dead to me. Can't play with you. Nick, I went to him, gave a little information, spread a little seed of distrust. He did nothing with that until his game against the banker. And at that point, it didn't matter. But he held that to his chest. That's a quality I like to see. I like to see you take the deception that I've given you to sow in distrust against your allies, and I'd like you to keep that to yourself. I don't want you to go clear it up. I don't want you to go to the source and try to work things out. I want you to just sit with that and marinate on it. And that is probably how I would have moved about in the game, and just kind of tried to navigate the middle while like tossing out, getting the big.
Okay, you mentioned Aaron. And I want to bring this up because Aaron was very complimentary of you when we did an exit interview a couple weeks ago. He spoke very well of you. He talked about how much respect he has for you and your profession, that you guys had a pretty good relationship at one point within the game. And it doesn't seem like there's any bad blood there, so that's good.
No,
but also, I want to say, so what I'm curious to know is you take out Alyssa, and obviously he was very emotional, especially for the next episode or two, couple of days there. He's very emotional. He's very upset.
Yeah.
Do you feel that, as you said, you would have liked to go to the end with him in the Final Four, and Kim's out at that point, so I imagine you still would like to play a game with him. Did you feel that that relationship was ever repairable after getting Alyssa out?
I think we would be able to salvage it. Aaron was a little bit on an island there by himself. And I had ample opportunity to be able to talk with him, to be able to, have great conversations with him. I think it would have been salvageable. I would have tried my hardest to be able to do that. And I think that when Alyssa went home, the very next excursion, he had an opportunity to exact the revenge upon me that he said he would. And he took that opportunity to not provide me sand in my little counter. So that way I didn't have a disadvantage going into the next excursion. So it is just that little piece of information, which always made me feel like maybe there's a glimmer of hope. Maybe there's a glimmer of hope. He's an amazing gamer. He has great game knowledge. He actually has wonderful strategy. We saw it in this game. And so I like
you
to
think
play.
he was he had a lot more, he was a lot stronger than people gave him credit for.
Yes. And we saw that, and I don't know why, like, it's not highlighted. I mean, he was strong there out on the boats when Rob was trying to manipulate the situation.
He stood his ground.
He stood his ground. And the whole time, we don't know this, you know what I mean? But watching it, it's just, there's a lot of details that come through where I'm like, yes, Aaron, like, he's a strong player. And so that's who I want to play with. That's who I want to play with. That's what I want to do. And Aaron's a great guy. So there's nothing to take from that. We weren't able to move forward in the way that we wanted to in a game type setting. Again, we had a way bigger personality there. And it just was unable to happen for me.
Okay, so something that I thought was interesting is, I know that this is something else that was pointed out by the fans. When Aaron went home, they said, oh, Stephanie didn't like comfort him or cheer for him or anything like that. But that's not true, right?
That's a total edit. That was a total edit. I definitely had some great words for Aaron. We did not have any discord in our relationship. I was very sad to see Aaron go. It was an emotional and heartfelt time for us, everyone there. I think nobody was without shedding a tear. We hated to see Aaron go. He was a great person to have around. And the same goes for an edit when we found out that Rob was eliminated. They eliminated the words that I had for him. I told him how great of a player that he was and how if I were at home, I'd 100% be rooting for him. It wasn't until that moment, I think, that Rob knew for certain that I knew him outside of the game, because I kept that to my chest. But it wasn't, I'm sad that that wasn't shown, but I understand that in curating this protagonist role, that doesn't behoove the storyline. But I'm not that rude. Like, I don't hate these people.
Okay, so going back to Aaron, one more thing on him.
Sure.
So he was pretty adamant and said that he was not going to get Rob out had he beaten the banker.
Right.
What do you think was going to happen that night?
I thought he was going to send me home. That wouldn't have been the best strategic game move. And in my soul of souls, I really feel that Aaron could have done one of the biggest moves, in competitive gaming reality if he turned around and turned on Rob. I think he has it in him. I thought he had it in him. It's the one opportunity that he would have had. And I still don't think he would have taken that opportunity. I think he still would have eliminated me. I just only like to hope that he wouldn't, but I think his bond with Rob was far too strong. And I don't think he saw any other path forward with him without Rob, sadly. But he could have did it on his own.
Jamil, we just talked to him. Jamil's awesome. Such a fun guy.
Yes.
And he talked about how he really wanted an East Coast alliance.
Yeah.
There was talk about that early in the season, right?
Yes. That would have been great. It just it didn't work out. It didn't work out. No. Because the East Coast Alliance was, again, even though Jamil doesn't quite see it, it was still Rob's doing what Rob does, which is creating a buffer around himself. And that wasn't going to work for my game in order to be able to move forward. I couldn't have that because the East Coast Alliance involved people that weren't, they're not privy necessarily to how to play these games. And I promise you this, and I will never back down, is that I had no choice but to try to get Rob out of the game, because if you do not, he will win. And that's just the bottom line. He will win. So
it took Boston Rob to beat Boston Rob this time around.
Yeah, I'm trying to tell you this. He had every right to be worried and concerned about being targeted, because when you are one of the best, that's exactly what's going to happen. And that, it's not anything. It's something maybe he should be very proud of, as opposed to wearing it as something that's like, oh, sad as me, a little bit. Like, you are the person to beat. You're it. You're him.
I just had a flashback as we were talking about Rob beating himself to, I think it was a commercial with Michael Jordan where he plays himself one-on-one with like his North Carolina jersey and then his Bulls jersey. So I'm like picturing Boston Rob like sitting down at the poker table with like all the different variations of Rob. Like we've got the 2002 Boston Rob, then we've got Rob and Amber, then we've got Heroes versus Villains Rob and Amazing Race Rob. All the different winners at War Rob, and they're all just sitting at the poker table and all just like, I'm all in.
I'm all in. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, this man's great. This man's great. What can you say? You can't take nothing from the guy.
Rob, you got to remake that commercial or do something. Someone's got to do a commercial there. Use AI. It'd be great. Okay, Steph, we only have like a few more minutes here. So what else? What else is on your mind that you'd like to discuss while you're here? Like about the season, about your experience, anything that you really haven't gotten a chance to touch on in any other interviews or anything like that?
I've been very, very pleased with the season. I value the viewers' opinions. I understand the excitement and the emotion, palms sweaty. You got to type it out. I hate you. You're so crazy. I get it. And I almost am thrilled to be able to incite that type of emotion in people in playing these games, because that is what I want when I'm watching this. And that's what I'm looking forward to. Deal or No Deal Island Season 2. I want to see people out there bringing it all. I want to see them trying their best, civilians, or whether we have reality people. I want to see gaming. I want to see strategy. I want to see the stroke of luck for sure. And the storylines. And so I have no criticisms. I understand why cuts were the way that they are, and people might have been painted the way that they were, but I have no criticisms. It was a lovely, life-changing experience. And I am thrilled to have walked this journey with the individuals who I've met and along this experience. And that's just what it is. Like, I'm just so grateful and so lucky to the executive producers of the program, and even to the my casting director, Andy Sloan, who basically just pulled me out of the dust and dusted me off and was like, "This is for you." And he was right. It is for me. I had a great time. So thanks to all of the people involved in this wonderful production. And I cannot wait to tune in for Season 2. And yes, I'll be back for All Stars if you want to have me.
I'm going to say this, like, I'm saying this with all truthfulness, like, and sincerity. And if we're pulling anyone from from this show for Traders, like, I think you're the pick. I think you and Rob, and maybe and Claudia too. Like, but other than Rob, other than Claudia, I want to see you on there. Because I really think that you shined as a big personality on the show. And you did get, like, you were more the villain this time around, but you're a gamer and you're playing really hard. And I would love to see you in that Traders where, like, you're obsessing every single night. You don't sleep at all. Am I going to get murdered? Who are the people? Creating all kinds of elaborate schemes, like the buddy system, especially if you're playing with Robert. Oh my gosh.
My word. Yeah. Unlikely duo of all duos. Oh my goodness. If I'm ever dead, it was Rob. No.
So there's my endorsement, Trader.
Thank you. That's so kind.
Maybe season 4. She's Stephanie Mitchell. You can follow her on social media at where?
I'm at Dr._midwife on all platforms, and I do a great deal of reproductive justice and birth talk on Instagram mostly, and then like the foolishness and shenanigans is kind of on Twitter. But you could catch me on all of platforms, just enjoying my time on the internet. So yeah, Dr._midwife.
Dr._midwife. We love seeing her on Deal or No Deal Island. Great talking with her today. Certainly won't be the last time that she's on the podcast. Stephanie, thank you so much. Enjoy all your other interviews.
My pleasure. Thank you, Jack.
All right, folks, that concludes this exit interview, long form exit interview with Stephanie Mitchell. I hope you guys enjoy listening to her because I really think she's so much fun and interesting. And I know that she got the villain edit on the show. She was kind of the antagonist to Rob, who was the protagonist. But I hope people are able to see that it's a TV show. There's a lot more that goes into it. There's a lot of editing. People are complex. There's just only a little bit that we see on the show. But I think Stephanie's delightful. I think she's a great character. And I always love hearing her thoughts. And the buddy system, that was genius. That was brilliant. So I loved hearing all of that. We've got plenty more of these. As I mentioned, just did a press conference with Boston Rob. You can find that on the channel. We've also got exit interviews with the final two, Amy McCoy and Jordan Fowler. Those will be out soon. So make sure you guys are all subscribed to the Jack Vita Show here on YouTube or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. I think 80% of the people who watch this channel are not subscribed. So why not hit subscribe and you'll never miss an episode. Even in the off season, we'll probably have some more DONDI stuff, maybe some more interviews and coverage, and certainly a lot more reality TV coverage. We cover Traders when that comes out. So there'll be a lot of really good stuff that you will not want to miss out on. So thank you, though, guys, for all tuning in. So hit subscribe. You can find me on social media at Jack Vita Show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And until our conversation with Mrs. Amy McCoy, I'm Jack Vita, bringing the dancing lobsters.